to Cancun.
Ah, okay.
Se presea.
Nah.
¿Y tú, Ana Pao, no te vas? You're not
No,
leaving?
teacher, a piedras only.
Piedras Negras.
Yes.
Ah, I heard it's not too bad. I've never been there, but I mean,
It's like even more, well, yeah, it's not really entertaining, but I love the people from there. Like they're really open and I don't know.
yeah, I wouldn't know. There is like a big lake near Piedras Negras, right? Like a big presa or something.
Yes.
Well, I hope you enjoy. Um, so guys, our last lesson before the holidays. I hope you have a nice holidays, and such. Before we will discuss the illnesses, um, you always have to take a little bit news which is not Mexican websites, in fact, to get like a good idea. Um, you for sure have heard that the semáforo changed to green yesterday
Yes.
in the state of Coahuila. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good thing, I
I
think.
hadn't. You just made my morning, mister.
Ah, you didn't know that? Yeah, it changed to green. Um, there is people saying that it's maybe like a political election stunt.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I've also heard that. But let's have a look at the data, guys, to see what it's all about. I mean, if we look at this website, coronavirus en México no es lo que hayan sabido que hacer con la pandemia, es que tomaron la decisión de no hacerlo. And that's a little bit true. I saw that in the BBC, and it's true. It's not that we don't know, we just didn't take the proper measures. And if we look now to worldometer Mexico cases of the virus, then we can see that we have, at this point, we have 5,000, almost 6,000 new cases daily, more or less. So you can see here it had a big spike, and now it's a little bit on the levels of, let's say, October, September, October of the other one. So basically, there is not much difference, and changing this to green, if we look to the active cases as well, there is still more cases than ever before, except for this little spike. So I'm showing you this because this green semaphore thing, it might give you like a very, it might give you the idea like it's all over, but the numbers tell us differently. Okay. Um, my opinion is, if you want to know, um, I'm happy somehow it's in green. I think it's good because that means that we can go back to school sooner or later, possibly after Semana Santa. You will go to campus. I'm not promising anything. I don't know that. Okay, we don't have had a meeting yet, but that's at least what was indicated. You know that when Coahuila will be 2 weeks in green, then students will go back little by little to campus. However, my opinion is here that I don't know if this is a political stunt or not, but the numbers tell us differently. Okay. And the other thing is that I'm not exactly sure what kind of message are you sending 2 days before the Easter holiday starts, and it gives the idea to the people like, okay, we're green, everything is okay. Um, I'm not exactly sure how big the mess will be after Semana Santa because everybody will leave, everybody will see each other. So, I mean, if we're honest, what we can see after Semana Santa is that I mean, there is in fact no doubt that this shall be the case, that you get another spike here. It will go up again, you know. So maybe this green semaphore, it's very short-lived, possibly, because it comes in a very uncareful time. I mean, if you want to change it to green, do it after Semana Santa. I would never do it before because it really sends a wrong message to the people. we already know that it's so hard to teach people things. Um, okay, Anna Paul, what's your question?
No, I didn't have a question.
No.
It's okay.
Tell me your opinion, maybe. What do you think?
Well, I think the same thing that happened in Christmas is going to happen again. Like, we don't learn from things. Well, it seems that we don't learn from things, So yeah, like the semaphore will go again to probably orange or red. Yes.
Yeah, but look, I do think that, I mean, students are leaving, students go for tacos, people go to the mall, people do go on holidays, people meet with big groups. I mean, things are happening anyway. Um, and I think that I mean in Europe they never close the schools, you know. I mean it's the teacher who has cubrebocas and the students they don't even have cubrebocas. It's not the schools that spread the virus, you know. So I think that if we talk about us, you and me, that I'm pro of going back to campus. It's not healthy to be so long on the computer. I mean, you're getting used to it. Maybe some of you think I'm quite comfortable like this, but on the long run, I mean, you're missing out a lot, you know. You're missing social contact, you're missing real school life. Yeah, it might be you can sleep a little bit more. Some of you are maybe not even really here. They just put on the computer and I think that you're all here, but I know it's not the case, you know. And in the long run, this will affect your studies, you know. So I don't think that we should keep on restricting school. In fact, school is like, according to me, and especially for Mexico, is the single most important thing that we should take care of and invest in. There is a lot of things that should be different in school, in fact, because I maybe I should not go there, but even the grading system is bad, you know. I mean, in Mexico everybody gets 90s and hundreds. In Europe it's not the case. If you're in Europe a 70, it's good, you know. We call 70 is with distinction, it's very good. With 50 you pass, 70 you're of the good ones, 80 you're incredible, and 90 one or two persons every year, you know. It's really a way bigger spectrum of grades. And here everybody gets 90s and hundreds and high 80s. That's the way of grading things here, but it gives the false idea that everybody's great, while in fact there are others who are a little bit more who are a little bit stronger in this part than other ones are. And in fact these really good students, they're completely hidden in the way of how we grade things. Anyway, today will be a shorter lesson. We will just discuss the type of illnesses we have. And if you want, we can discuss more about drugs. I would very much like to do that, but I would like you to participate, you know. So if you have questions, if you want to ask things, we can open this discussion to talk more about drugs. But let's first have a look at the disorders that we have in the nervous system. Okay, there's many of them. um, there is many nervous system disorders. I will try to focus here on some main ones that I really think that are important mentioning. But of course, it's up for debate which are the most important ones, or not. There, at least we cannot see them all. So I'm going to show you three, four illnesses that I consider that are very interesting knowing about. Um, okay, where are you? Mm. So the first one I want to talk about is ALS. Okay, you definitely have heard of ALS because ALS became really famous some years ago. I don't even remember when. I never did it because I think it's I never understood how you help people by doing that. But it got really famous because of this. Okay, have a look at this.
Teacher, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, it had to be Donald Trump. A little bit ridiculous. He uses drinking water to do it.
For the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Homer Simpson, Mike Tyson, Vince McMahon, like everybody's going crazy over this thing. I guess they want to see whether or not it's my real hair, which it is. So here's what I'm going to do. Miss Universe and Miss USA, I own it. They're here. They're going to really do a number on me. I'm challenging President Obama, my son Donald, my son Eric. Let's go, ladies.
So you probably have seen that. I'm sorry of taking Donald Trump. Maybe it's not. I'm not a fan of him at all, and it's even funny how he makes it about him and not about ALS. He makes it about his hair. Anyway, this ice bucket challenge was really something several years ago. To give attention to ALS. And ALS is an illness which stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And one of the most famous people that had that disease, who passed away also 1 or 2 years ago, I believe, is Stephen Hawking. Um, Watch his documentaries, read his books. I think he was one of the most prominent scientists of the last century. In fact, he did very important work on black holes and stuff. I like reading his work. In fact, I have his book of him that I will start reading this holiday. Um, and it's a neurodegenerative disease. It affects only the motor neurons. So basically, you will not the sensory neurons. So you will keep on smelling, seeing, hearing, and everything. But it's the motor neurons that are affected. So in the end, the first thing that happens is you cannot move your hands and your legs anymore, and then little by little you lose speech. If you lose speech, that's also controlled by motor neurons, and then in the end people pass away because it's the motor neurons that control the lungs and the heart that also start to be affected, but that finally kills the patient. And what's really ugly about ALS is that we don't know where it comes from. What is the cause of ALS? We really don't know. What we do know is that it might have a genetical and an environmental factor, but it's one of the big mysteries still, and that's why this ice bucket challenge was such a thing, because basically it's one of the most ugly diseases that of the nervous system, because if you have it, you will be paralyzed, you will be in a wheelchair, and it's chronically degenerative. What that means is that tomorrow is always worse than today, and little by little you become more and more paralyzed until you die. So it's not only physically a very complex disease, it's also psychologically a very hard burden. Okay, so that's our first illness, ALS. Um, okay, and then this, guys, I already talked a little bit about it. It's multiple sclerosis. um, this is a little bit what happens, like we have seen. You have here a neuron. This neuron has like myelin around it in order for the action potential to be transmitted in a more efficient way and in a faster way. And what happens with this multiple sclerosis is not as bad as ALS. People, they have a better prognosis with multiple sclerosis than with ALS, but still it's a disease of the nervous system that we also don't have a really good cure for. So what is the difference with ALS? It attacks the motor neurons itself get destroyed, and in multiple sclerosis it's the myelin. So it's like the coating of the nerve cells that get destroyed. So here you can see the damaged myelin, and the damage is caused by your own immune system. So they are autoimmune diseases. Okay. Any questions about this multiple sclerosis? It's also a little bit more common than this ALS. It's a bit more common, and the same story with multiple sclerosis. We don't really know. We don't really know what the true origin is of multiple sclerosis, but we do know. Um, that it has an environmental and a genetical factor. Okay, we don't know the weight of each component, but it's a very ugly disease as well. Um, Before, I didn't put it in the presentation here, but some of you last lesson were talking a little bit about Alzheimer's disease, okay? And in fact, Alzheimer's disease is not really in the presentation because it's not actually in the strict sense a disease of the nervous system, okay? Because what is the cause of Alzheimer? It's not the neurons itself, okay? In Alzheimer disease, what you get is that it's an illness in the brain, and in your brain you have like billions of neurons. We've seen that, right? You know that it's like a whole spider web of neurons. It's quite it's super super complex. But all that web of neurons that you have in your brain, like you see, can see on my background, this spider web needs some kind of structure to keep in place. Let's say it needs like things to hang on, to keep everything in the nice three-dimensional form in your brain. All those neurons, they cannot sit on top of each other because they're like starfish, they're like octopus, they have tentacles everywhere. So all those tentacles and all those connections, they need to be kept in place. And what happens in Alzheimer is, in fact, that spider web of neurons that you have in your brain, it's kept in place thanks to certain proteins, okay? And one of those proteins that keep those neurons in place, we call them prions. And prions are proteins, let's say three-dimensional structures as well, and they have also like little hands, and they keep all the neurons in place, that the labyrinth stays like a nice structure. So what happens with Alzheimer is that for some kind of reason, which we also don't know exactly, the configuration, remember from last semester, what is the configuration, the three-dimensional configuration of a protein? What happens with those proteins is that, in fact, they collapse. So instead of being, let's say, this hand that keeps the structure in place, it collapses, it collapses and it doesn't do the job anymore. So the problem in Alzheimer is not the neurons, but it's the proteins that keep the neurons in place. And when the structure is damaged, then the neurons, they lose connections, and typically that's what you get with Alzheimer's disease. You start forgetting things, you forget who you are, your memory is affected, all of these things, because the connection between those billions and billions of neurons in your head, they start being destroyed, and in the end you have cases of Alzheimer that they don't even know anymore who they are. But it's not really a problem of the neurons itself. It is the proteins, which we call prions in our brain, that keep the structure in nice configuration and nice three-dimensional dimensions and configuration, that gets damaged. And we don't know how that happens. We just know that for some kind of reason, those proteins, they collapse upon themselves, they change 3D configuration, and that's basically what happens. And as a consequence, of course, those neurons get destroyed.
Teacher,
Yes.
what about Parkinson?
Okay, Parkinson is also not part of the presentation. Parkinson is another thing. Okay, Parkinson is very different from Alzheimer disease because basically what happens in Parkinson disease is not that much of the brain that gets affected. It's an illness where you have a lot of problems with walking, balance, and coordination. And we also know that Parkinson becomes worse and worse over time. Okay. What is the risk of Parkinson is typically higher age. It's not very often that young people get Parkinson. And the cause of Parkinson is basically that Parkinson is indeed when nerve cells or the neurons itself, in the brain that control the movement, they start to be impaired. Okay, something happens that that they don't send correct signals anymore, and this Parkinson is something that has to do as well with neurotransmitters. Okay, we have a lot of neurotransmitters that are released in the brain, and one of the most important one is dopamine. And Parkinson is like something there. There is something wrong with the nerve cells to send the signals, and it has to do with the release of the neurotransmitter. So in Parkinson, what happens is that the connection between the nerve cell is not sending the signal properly. So you send the signal and it dies out, or sometimes the signal gets accumulated, and then you get this typically shaky movements, you know, that you see in Parkinson. Um, I'm not an expert in Parkinson, but we know it has to do with neurotransmitters. And what is also interesting about Parkinson, this is typically the tremor or the trembling of things, of hands, arms, jaws, even parts of the face, and some parts of the other body. They can have limpness, but this is completely different from Alzheimer, because people, they think often that they're related, but they have nothing to do with each other. What the problem is a complete different thing, and Parkinson is way more common than than Alzheimer. In fact, we would see more often Parkinson than Alzheimer, and Parkinson is really an illness that has to do with becoming older. But also Alzheimer, we typically see that in older people. And for Parkinson, we have some treatment. There is treatments that they implant certain neurons, not neurons, like electrodes in the brain or something that can send a signal that improves it. And there's also people smoking marijuana in order to improve Parkinson. Now you mention it, maybe I've seen this video recently. Um, Maybe I can find it. Why marijuana has like a very interesting fact. I'm not saying it is good medicine, um, but there is definitely worth to investigate a little bit more. Let me see if I find it, because there has been circulating quite. Okay, it's a very short video. It's exactly this one that I wanted to show about this patient that uses marijuana for treatment of his Parkinson. And look the difference. It's quite stunning. And how the marijuana affects this? Well, it probably has something to do with controlling the neurotransmitters. But honestly, I don't know how that working mechanism of marijuana and Parkinson would exactly be. But there is more and more indication that it would be a treatment for certain patients that could be very beneficial.
Hi, Larry. How are you? Come in. Come in. How you feeling? It's been a rough week, really.
So typical Parkinson patient, incontrollable movement, tremors, moving the neck, the head, the arms. So you see, it's very uncomfortable, because he cannot control this. And it's very annoying because these people think that they're like handicapped or something, but basically their brain is completely fine.
We know from animal experiments that the endogenous cannabinoid system is very important in regulating motor activity, the very type of activity that is impaired in Parkinson's disease. From animal experiments, we also know that boosting certain branches of the endocannabinoid system is helpful in relieving symptoms of Parkinson's. Finally, from anecdotal information, we know that certain patients who smoke marijuana experience relief of their symptoms. I think you're calmed down. Isn't it amazing?
He used just a single drop, and his hands afterwards were rock steady, and the dyskinesia left.
Voice flew back. It works most of the time. That is. Did you guys eat lunch? person like me could really use marijuana. It makes me pretty angry that I can't keep it in my home state. The number one frustration that I have is knowing that there is this untapped potential comes from what marijuana is teaching us to generate new medicines and being stuck because of financial issues or political issues. That is extremely frustrating.
We now know that medical marijuana controls dyskinesia, and yet it's not available to us.
Great, quite striking, right? I do think that in these cases, really, there should be done more investigation because it's really clear that this medical marijuana, it has for cancer patients, certain Parkinson patients, it has very uh, beneficial purposes. So we should not put it always in the criminal scene because it really has good things as well.
Well,
Um,
Mr. At
yes.
least it's being legalized basically all around the world.
Yeah, literally, I do think so. Yeah, you're right. It's going into the right direction, right? It's getting little by little legalized everywhere. Many countries in Europe. I don't know how Mexico is doing at the moment, but I heard messages yes and then no. I'm not really sure anymore. Also in United States, it's way becoming way more accepted than ever before. So that's good news, especially for medical purposes, because I think that's the area where we should allow it. If you want to do it for recreational purposes, well, that's another discussion. But anyway, for medical purposes, there is no doubt that this is very beneficial for certain cases, especially cancer cases, Parkinson cases. Okay. Any questions so far?
No
No.
problem.
No.
No.
Okay. Well, and then I'm going to talk about one more, and this one is called meningitis. And meningitis is something you should be scared of because it's a very ugly thing. Meningitis is in fact an illness that could be bacterial or that could be viral. Okay, and meningitis is very serious because once it gets infected, it's very difficult to cure. So, what is meningitis? In fact, you have a brain, and like any organ that we have seen in our organ systems, all the organs they have some kind of protective membrane around them. And also the brain has a protective membrane around it, and this membrane we call it the meninges. Okay, so it's basically the membrane that covers your brain in order to keep it safe from viruses, from trauma, from anything basically. Just to protect this very very important organ. Well, it can happen now that this membrane can get infected. Why? Because we have very ugly bacteria, which is the main meningitis bacteria, and we have another virus as well that can infect the membrane. And why is it such an ugly disease? Is because basically it's always very very serious. It's very it's contagious, um, especially the bacterial version. And once you have it, there is a high risk. I don't know the exact percentage, but if you're not treated really quickly in the hospital, there is people that can die from it, very easily because you get like a fever, a very, very strong fever in the head, and basically the fever can become so high in the brain that I mean, it's a big word to say that the brain will be cooked, but it really affects the brain, and it can be very serious. Moreover, it's very very painful. It creates very heavy fever, extreme headaches. It can cause nausea, vomits, um, And unfortunately, nowadays, especially if you go to Asia and stuff, we have vaccinations against viral meningitis, and for bacterial meningitis, you should get proper antibiotics treatment, specialized antibiotics to treat meningitis as fast as possible. Most cases, at least in fact, all cases in Belgium, in Europe, I don't know about Mexico, but all cases in Europe, they end up in the hospital, all of them. You are obliged to go to the hospital. I mean, not obliged, you're obliged, but at the same time you want to go because you feel horrible and it's very, very critical. And without medical attention, it looks bad. And you have to go to the hospital for two reasons. You need immediate and very professional care, both for viral and bacterial meningitis, is not something you can treat on your own. Definitely not. You need professional care, even a specialist, a very good specialist to do that. And the second one, it is contagious. So you have to be careful with that as well. You have to go in a personal quarantine. If there is a case, I know that in Belgium because it happened. If there is a case of meningitis in a school, the school gets closed for 2 or 3 days, and all the students they will be kept in observance, and they will be checked as well. So it's that dangerous because I don't know the exact numbers, but it has a high mortality rate. So maybe 1 in 4, 1 in 5 might die of the disease if not taken proper care of. Okay, this is a little bit all the illnesses that I wanted to address.
Sure.
Yes.
And from where does meningitis or meningitis come from? Like the bacteria? Where can you find it?
Um, it's a bacteria that needs, like anyone, it needs a host. So basically, you get infected by somebody else. So it's something that lives in the human population, and it might resurface some for some kind of reason. To be honest, Emilio, I don't really know how that works. I don't have enough knowledge about this meningitis, because if it's a bacteria, yeah, it lives in the population. You have to get infected, but maybe it can be that also some animals can incubate it. I would have to do some research about it because I don't exactly know if it can pass for by animals or it's only humans. I don't know the details. I'm sorry. Yes.
And I remember that rabia or rabies, I think is, does rabies affect the brain?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, rabies is one of the most lethal viruses that we have in the world. In fact, it has like a more than 90% mortality, sorry. So if you get rabies, then if you don't get the vaccine, then you die. So what happens with rabies? It's a virus, and the further you get, usually you get bitten by a raccoon, you get bitten by a dog, you can even get it from monkeys in India that are infected with rabies. I don't know the exact working mechanism, but rabies, it finds its way to the brain. So if you get bitten in your foot, you have a higher chance of survival than when you're bitten in your neck, because once the virus reaches the brain, then there is no way back, and you die, because what the virus does, it destroys your servo your neurons in the central nervous system. And basically what happens, that once it's in the brain, then it will shut down your heartbeat, it will shut down your breathing, it will shut down everything, and you die. So you have to avoid that this virus reaches to the brain. And you can do that by giving, even if you got bitten and you give a vaccine in an area that is closer to your, for instance, you get bitten in your foot and you give a vaccine in your arm, then the immune system in your arm can develop quickly antibodies against the virus, and you can treat it. So that's the only way to save yourself. But if you got bitten and you don't do anything, then it's bye bye you, because you will die. There is no question about it. Okay, because it will, what the virus does, it travels over the neurons to the brain. And once it arrives the brain, it's game over. Okay.
Okay.
And the virus as well, they call it crazy dog disease because basically once it starts to affect your brain, your saliva glands get overactive because you cannot control your thoughts anymore. You can become aggressive and stuff, and that's typically what you see in dogs and in animals that get it. And that makes the virus so dangerous because it makes you crazy, and once you're crazy you will attack other people, and by attacking other people, I don't know if humans do that, I'm talking more about animals, but possibly humans as well if you're infected, that if you start attacking or putting other people, then that's how you spread the virus. And the thing is as well, the virus is present in the saliva, so basically by being infected and having the virus in your saliva, you can easily infect somebody else. Okay, so guys, this is it for me for today. Wanted to do it a little bit quiet. I think we did. I hope you thought it was interesting to see about these diseases. Um, and and I want to wish you a really peaceful and quiet holiday. Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Bye.
you, teacher.
Thank
Have
you,
a nice
teacher.
You too.
weekend.
Hey, Mr. Enjoy your holidays.
Thank you.
Sure.
Teacher, teacher.
Yes.
I arrived in late, but I was still here the whole time.
Okay, don't worry. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Have a
welcome.
nice holiday.
Okay, take care. Bye. Have a nice holiday.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hey, Mr. The same. I arrived a little bit late, like I getting 15 minutes.
Okay, no, it's okay. I didn't put you falta, Guillermo. Have a nice holiday. Take
Okay, thank you, Mr. Just other thing, other stuff.
care.
About the homework
Yes.
because I think I didn't do it. So yes, that's all. I thought that was the last week homework in Teams.
Uh-huh.
The one of the homework of the day of the exam.
Okay. Try to upload something in the comments or send me something over Canvas, Guillermo, because I have to close this cycle. Okay. I cannot accept it much later anymore because I have to upload the grades as well. Okay.
Okay, it's okay. Thank you,
So,
Mister.
so if you
Goodbye.
can upload it in the comments or something, I can still have a look at it. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mister.
Okay. You're welcome.
Goodbye.
Take care.
Have a nice week.
You too.
A nice day. Goodbye.
Bye.